we have just two more windows we need to dock to our screen. Their functionality is simple compared with the others, so we can get through them quickly. First up is the Project Explorer window. Dock it over to the far left of the screen. The project window's organization and interaction is very much like a Windows PC file directory browser. You can see a variation of this layout still in use in Windows 10. So what are we browsing here? Well, the files in your computer are data containers of sorts. For the sake of convenience, let's call them objects, which are stored in our computer's memory system. In the same way, the project window allows us to browse through a set of objects which contain data relevant to the Excel application and the IDE. As an aside, don't worry if you don't see that solver item there. It concerns a Microsoft add-in which you may have not enabled. And in any case, Microsoft has locked access to it, so I have no idea what's in there. Please ignore it. For practical purposes, the first node in our tree is our current project. This is an object which encompasses everything that you have saved in this Excel file. That includes important Excel items that you can see and interact with using the main application window, and any special back-end objects which are created to handle VBA functionality in our file and which we interact with using the VBA editor. Clicking unpacks that, and you can see a folder icon labeled Microsoft Excel Objects. Expand it if it hasn't been already, and you'll see it shows us a little list. As the folder name suggests, these are Excel objects which are viewable inside the main Excel application window. In this demonstration file, you can see we have the cover worksheet and then an object which represents the entire workbook itself. These Excel objects have their own coding windows, and we will use those at some point. But the majority of our code is actually going to be stored in a different type of container, one which does not have any predefined relationships with Excel objects like these ones do. The code containers we're going to be using are instead called standard code modules, often just modules for short. But since new Excel files have no code in them by default, these new files won't have any modules in them either. We have to create them. It's easy, so let's do that now. In the main editor menu, click Insert, and in the following drop-down menu, click Module. Bam! A new folder appears in the Project Explorer window which is called Modules. Inside it is a new node which represents our new module. It is inspiringly called Module 1. If you repeat that a couple of times, you'll see we keep on adding modules to that folder. Use the shortcut Alt+I+M if you're impatient. So what is all this? Well, just as we can divide up code into different procedures, we can also divide up procedures into different modules. The simple benefit of this is organizational. We now have a way of grouping related procedures together, which makes it easier to browse larger VBA projects. The deeper truth is, though, that modular organization also allows for some powerful functional capabilities which affect how the code runs and how data is shared between procedures. Each of these modules can be exported with all their code and saved as files in their own right. If you right-click on the module, you'll see the option Export File, and that's what that does. Reciprocally, you can import code modules which you have saved previously. Clicking Import File in that same menu does this pretty much as you'd expect. Once you've developed your own little tools, it's super easy to shuttle them to and fro between Excel files as and when you need them. And that's a slightly more secure way of doing it than just copying and pasting code from one file to another. Finally, to delete a module, just click on the Remove button and choose whether you want to export it or not before you do. For our immediate purposes, however, all you need to remember is that each module has its own code window, and that any code or text typed in there is only visible from the module which it was first entered into. So, if I type something into Module 3, it will not be visible in Module 1, which I can access by double-clicking on the Module 1 node in the project window, and vice versa. So once you have a bit of background about the objects, there's not much to the Project Explorer window. It's just a tool which allows you to navigate between these different objects and which allows you to alter or inspect their contents as you need to. With all that covered, our final window, the Properties window, is also easy to explain. Load this window from the View menu again and dock it to the bottom left corner so it sits under the project window, but also to the left of the Locals window. Again, it's fiddly, but possible. The Properties window gives us additional information about the object currently selected in the Project Explorer window. Returning to the file browser analogy, the Properties window is similar to those secondary menus which tell us how big a file is, when it was created, what application opens it, etc. Here, we're dealing with Excel and VB editor projects, so the properties are different. In addition to telling us things about our active object, we're also able to change some of those properties. The most common and simple example of this is when you use the Properties window to give your code modules more helpful names. For example, we can call Module 1 Custom Functions, Module 2 File Presentation Macros, and so on. The layout and content of the Properties window changes depending on the object being viewed. Great! That's all the IDE tools and words done.